that over 80% of enterprise data is never actually used to make business decisions, or that most AI projects fail not because of the technology, but because they lack trusted data and clear business integration. That is exactly the challenge we'll address today. How can organizations turn raw data into real business outcomes and make AI relevant, reliable, and responsible across all domains? Let us see how SAP does it. Welcome everyone to today's live expert session. We're thrilled to have you join us as we dive into one of the most exciting and important topics in business technology today: how to truly unlock the power of AI and data with SAP. I have the honor of having here with me Majeed Malik. Majeed is leading the Enterprise AI Product and Partner Management at SAP's in-house Enterprise AI team. The Enterprise AI team drives SAP's internal AI adoption and excellence with the objective to infuse intelligence into SAP's core business processes across all functional areas. And now, without further ado, over to you, Majeed.
Thank you, Tania, and thanks for the great introduction. So let me just start by sharing my screen. And also from my side, a warm welcome everyone joining this Inside SAP series, where you get really a view behind the curtain of how we run SAP internally. And I have the pleasure today to talk about transforming end-to-end business processes with AI at SAP. And before we get started, I maybe just want to spend a minute on expectation management. So what can you expect, and also what can't you expect from that session? So first and foremost, like mentioned, you will get, I would say, an exclusive view behind the curtain. So you will see of how we run AI internally at SAP. I have not prepared like a sales pitch or any fancy product demos, but a real view in our productive system. So you will see in the next half an hour multiple AI solutions that are up and running, productive to more of our 100,000 employees at SAP. So a real view inside the machinery room, I would say. Second, I also want to share a couple of lessons learned. We have been doing AI at SAP since 10, 15 years, I would say. And since then, we had a couple of lessons learned. A lot of things we improved, a lot of things that failed as well, a lot of things that worked out. So I want to share some lessons learned. And last but not least, I also want to give you an overview of what is next. What are we planning internally? What are our top priorities for the upcoming month and years? And also, like have a conversation with you of how we apply AI, business AI internally at SAP. All right, I would say enough talking. Let's get started right away in some of the content. And I know when I prepared the slide, it's a bit unconventionally to start with that because it looks like a summary, but I took this on purpose. Why? Because I want to start with what have we already achieved as of today. I already mentioned in the beginning that we started AI at SAP 10, 15 years ago. Back then, we maybe called it math, statistics, data science, machine learning. Nowadays, we call it generative AI or agentic AI. But what has not changed is that in the core, it's fundamentally about delivering real business value for the company, for the enterprise. And that's what we still do as of today, which is also stated very clearly in our vision statement. I would say our vision internally is simple in terms of the statement, but extremely ambitious. We want to bring AI and real business value into all our business processes, into all our systems, and to all our employees. So I told you it's a simple statement, simple sentence, but extremely ambitious to really achieve that as well. So a couple of highlights on that slide, and no worries, we will not go through all of the boxes, but I want to mention a couple of things that stand out. First, we have, as we speak, more than 180 unique AI solutions up and running internally at SAP. So meaning available on a daily basis around the globe to around more than 100,000 employees that we have at SAP and solving very concrete business problems. This is containing a mix of our own products, embedded AI solutions in SAP software, like in SuccessFactors, LeanIX, Fieldglass, Signavio, and so on. Tailored solution that we extend, we'll come to that in a second, but also solutions from our partners like GitHub Copilot or Microsoft. Another point I want to is our attention, our target is to be the first customer, be the customer zero of ourselves. So meaning we want to adopt our own solutions. So kind of like, with eat your own dog food, drink your own. And why do we do this? First, we are really convinced that our solutions embedded in the core of our business processes systems are extremely valuable. So we are deeply convinced that leveraging those solutions, we will achieve internal benefits. And the second reason for that is we want to be the first customer sharing honest feedback, really helping to improve the product for our customers, shape the expectation, also manage what we can do, where the product is being developed. So really share outside of the IT new requirements, new feedback from more than 100,000 end users. All right, another point I want to quickly mention is our architecture, our landscape. Over the past years, we strategically decided to move towards a hybrid architecture. What does it mean? First and foremost, we adopt our own solutions. So S/4HANA, SuccessFactors, Signavio, LeanIX, and so on. And as part of those products, we adopt AI solutions embedded into the products. So that's our first step into defining our landscape. Secondly, what we see, and I'm sure in your own business, in your own enterprises will be very similar, is that internal processes can be quite complex, can be quite unique. So let's just take the hiring process, for example, at SAP. I'm sure that has its own nuances, its own variation based on local regulations, internal policies, and so on, than, for example, a company in the finance industry. This is why we sometimes require that we tailor AI solutions specific to our own need. And here it's important that you do this in a really structured way. So meaning keep your core of the system, your SAP system, clean, don't touch it, but build extensions via Business Technology Platform. That's also what we do internally. So we leave our core SAP system clean as it is, and then leverage business data from, for example, from Business Data Cloud, from HANA, and so on, to build then an AI extension on top of BTP using AI Core and Generative AI Hub. And then the third part of our hybrid landscape is strategic partnerships. We partner up with companies like Databricks, Microsoft, Google, and others to also leverage their solution data, which is our development landscape to develop AI solutions internally at SAP. All right, I would say let's have a more detailed view to our journey at SAP of how we started and how we are also moving towards what our top priorities for the upcoming month and years to come. So I already mentioned that we started with AI at SAP roughly 10, 15 years ago. And back then we started with experimenting, learning, failing as well, and then repeating this entire cycle. And one thing I want to mention, which is very important to me, independent when you started or if you have started. So the most thing is just start, experiment with the technology, learn, fail as well, adapt, and just iterate and innovate together with your business and your IT organization. It doesn't matter if you started 10 years ago, 15 years ago, or if you're starting tomorrow. The most important thing is just get started. Don't have huge expectations right from the get-go. Just get familiar with the technology. And as you adopt it and as you do the first pilots, for example, you will smoothly transition into the second phase, which we also had at SAP, where we saw the first real business value being delivered. So be it, for example, a simple AI solution where you, via, for example, document AI, extract certain information from an invoice, or you create a Q&A chatbot, or you classify IT tickets into, I don't know if that is related to the hardware, to the software, to the equipment of the employee. Just get started and you will see the first business value really being created. And then one very important piece, also internally at SAP for us was, I would say, around the, let me call it hype or huge investment into AI, especially generative AI, we saw a lot of interest as well internally. So suddenly, every line of business, every employee wanted to innovate and start with AI, which is amazing. But you need to have a structured approach of how you really do this and how you really manage the transition towards an AI-first mindset. So this is why we installed early 2023 an SAP-wide AI program to manage the internal AI adoption and excellence. So really meaning bringing together colleagues from all the line of businesses into a common program setup where we define standard approaches on how we develop use cases, a standardized life cycle, a clear intake, an operating model, common platform solution, tools that should be leveraged, clear processes, guidelines on compliance, for example, which is extremely important, but also aspects like value management. So you need to make clear that you also can articulate and understand the business value your AI solution is really bringing. So here, really important, and just want to stress that once again, make sure that if you start to formulate and structure your AI program internally, then involve the different C-levels, I would say, line of businesses, also cross functions like controlling, value management, compliance, and so on, to really make sure that you take this holistically. Otherwise, you will have certain downsides that I also will come later on in a few seconds. Where do we stand as of today? Today, we have a very big landscape of AI solutions. I mentioned it, 180 unique AI solutions. Right now, we are basically shifting our mindset from individual use cases, so meaning having here a chatbot, here a classification model, and so on, to more a strategic view on entire business processes. So meaning, how can we fully automate entire workflows, entire processes, instead of having individual AI use cases towards a more compound AI system thinking. How does it look like, and also how it works in action? So I promise you will see a couple of live demos as well. That's what we will discuss in a couple of minutes. And then what is tomorrow? To wrap up the slide is surely agentic AI, agentic enterprises, automating entire workflows, covering entire business processes. And this is something where it's not just the future, it's already existing. Both internally, we already have agentic AI solutions live at SAP. If you want to learn more about that, there is an amazing session coming up next week from my colleague Michelle. She will tell about agentic AI in customer support. So if you want to see that in action, highly encouraged to take part there. But also we have agentic AI solutions in our product available, like SuccessFactors and others. So that is not just the future, but more like the priority and ongoing, the clear focus for us internally as well. All right, let's move on. And before we do that, one remark, I know how to scale a timeline. So when I was creating that, I was, as a data scientist from background, was a bit confused myself. But I think it matches quite well because the slide also shows that the innovation cycles are getting really brutally short. 10, 15 years ago, it was more about foundational models, new techniques, new ways of creating machine learning. Nowadays, if you look every week, every month latest, there is one new fundamental outcome, the next big large language model or paradigm shift from generative AI to agentic AI and so on. So really seeing that innovation cycles are getting really short, which is why it's more important to just get started and not wasting further time. All right, now let's have a detailed look of how we can drive business transformation with AI. And from my point of view, if you want to talk about business transformation, we at least need to have a look into 4 dimensions at least. First, processes, then people, application, and data. So why it's so important? So let's just imagine we have an AI solution, which is utilizing the best-in-class AI model available, the best large language model right now existing, trained on the best data you can imagine, and is solving a concrete problem in your finance process. But you forget about adoption and change management on your employee side, then you will not harvest the value that you were expecting. And the same also goes for any other combination. So you also can say you have trained your people, you have basically used the best large language model available, but your input data is just not right, it's not fulfilling your data quality requirements, then also utilizing the best method, you will fail, even though you have considered training, enablement, using the right technique, whatever. If your data is just bad, you will fail in your AI initiative. So which is why keep clear on those 4 dimensions. And on the other side, it's also very important to stay structured, to not lose track about those 4 dimensions. So which is why we internally at SAP leverage our power trio. Regarding data, if you want to learn more about that, there are also sessions on Business Data Cloud. I'm not touching that today, but that's then the 4th component, of course, where you can really ensure that you meet your data quality requirements and also get away from isolated data lakes and the databases to a more holistic and consistent view. But let's have a quick view on the other 3 dimensions. So on process side, we utilize Signavio. So maybe switch to that slide here. So for processes, we use Signavio to really document, track, better understand our internal business processes. It also helps us to identify, for example, bottlenecks in the process, to see where, for example, the process is breaking, where a manual process is required, where there's a tool break, and so on. So Signavio is there really the tool of choice to better understand your business process. Secondly, we have LeanIX. LeanIX is giving us a structured overview of our as-is IT landscape. So meaning what IT systems, what solutions are deployed and existing. I mentioned we have 180 plus AI solutions available at SAP. So let's just imagine we don't have a proper inventory management. You for sure will lose track of which solutions are existing, which business process they are touching, which will in the end resolve to that we have a lot of duplicates and dependencies that we are not able to manage anymore. And last but not least, and I would say new to the SAP family is WalkMe. So really looking into the people adoption change management piece. It's extremely crucial. That was also one of our biggest learning to really say it like that. You cannot you cannot basically imagine how important that dimension is. We had a couple of scenarios, really great solution, trained on perfect data and good data scientists and engineering done. But if the employees are not adopting it because they're not understanding, for example, the changes, then it will fail. And with WalkMe, you can manage this adoption and change management by really having an embedded guide directly in the system, which is teaching your end user and showing the end user how to adopt the solution. All right, now let's see that a bit more in action. So how do we now really do this internally at SAP? And the first step is you need to start with your business process. So take Signavio, that's what I did, had a look into our end-to-end business process for HR, which is called here recruit to retire. So from hiring or identifying the need for resources, hiring the right employee, doing assessments and so on, and then onboarding the colleague to, of course, at some point, retiring the employee. So start with a look into your end-to-end business process. There, utilizing Signavio to better understand the process and also understand, for example, who is the owner of which process, of which sub-step, and so on. The second step is to really see what IT solutions and AI use cases already exist as of today in your business process. So this is what you can see here. And this is not just some dummy data or some dummy use cases. All of those solutions you can see here, they exist. They are deployed, are being utilized on a daily basis internally at SAP. You see here 2 different colors. I would say the one a bit funkier with multiple colors. This is indicating that we are using an SAP solution out of the box. So for example, interview question generation in the staffing phase. That's a solution embedded directly in SuccessFactors. So you can use it to, for example, generate interview questions based on the candidate's profile and also based on the job offering you have. So this is, for example, one solution. And on the other side, you see in the neutral color or in the dark color, those are use cases that we built and tailored specifically to SAP. We have our internal processes, policies, and so on. In that case, we utilize BTP with AI Core and Generative AI Hub to really build tailored solution on top of our unique process, our data, to really then extend our SuccessFactors system. All right. Then third step of how we move towards a real end-to-end coverage. I want to spend a couple of minutes so we can also have a look into some of the solutions in real, so in the productive system. So this is what we can do now. Let me just switch my screen and log into my session here again. So what you see here now is our productive SAP SuccessFactors system deployed to more than 100,000 employees. So you can see that's my profile. That's my real SuccessFactors account. And what we have available is one solution that is, for example, helping you to generate performance and development goals. That's a very small sub-step, but every single employee at SAP needs to go through this process to create a performance goal, for example, which is smart specified. So meaning, let me see if I still can get that, specific, measurable, accountable, realistic, and timely, I think. So really have that very clearly defined, an objective which is measurable, for example. And that in the past took, for example, 50, 20, maybe 30 minutes of time. And now with the performance and development goal creation embedded in SuccessFactors, this process is extremely optimized from 15, 20, half an hour to a couple of minutes. So let's just demonstrate that. So let's, for example, say I want to learn more about agentic AI and apply it to a project in the HR process. So you see, just providing a sentence, maybe as well the one or the other spelling mistake in there, but really providing minimum output input, and we're getting a good defined performance goal already. So what you can see here is it took the mini description I entered, providing me a description title for that goal, learn and apply agentic AI in HR process project. Sounds okay. Can also still adjust it. The same goes for the goal description, for example. I can now add here additional context if I like, or I can interact as well with the text. So for example, I can mark it and can say, let's make that a bit longer, for example. Maybe that looks a bit too short. I can apply it. The same I also can do for the success indicator and say, for example, change the tone, make it more professional, and work with the output, and for example, say also use that and make bullet points out of it. So you see, that is a very simple scenario, it's a very simple use case, but this is exactly what I believe real business AI is about. Integrating AI directly into the workflow, into the system where your user is anyway in. As a user, I don't want to bookmark yet another system or application. I want to use it directly in the system I anyway need to work in. So I anyway need to work in SuccessFactors, create my goals, and embedded in SuccessFactors, I can use right away the AI solution available for me. So this is one example, which is embedded, existing out of the box from SuccessFactors. Another use case where we built an extension utilizing Generative AI Hub and SAP AI Core is our procurement or Ask Procurement, which is a chatbot around our procurement policies. Why we build that use case? The procurement policies, like maybe in every other company, are very unique, very specific at SAP. So there are certain policies in place. What can you order? What can't you order? In which tenure are you allowed to order it to your home address, and so on. So there are hundreds of policies available on what you can do and also what you can't do. And what we did is very simple, utilized the policies, created embeddings from them, stored them in HANA vector engine, utilizing the SAP Generative AI Hub to build a simple RAG use case on top of that and embed that into Joule. So what you can do now is, for example, take a question and say, hey, I'm new at SAP and I want to order a monitor for my office location in Walldorf. How to do this? And I also ask it short and provide direct links. So instead of now in the past, I maybe asked a colleague, created a procurement ticket, looked up the policies, for example, spent a lot of time. I now really integrated in my workflow, can ask right away our Ask Procurement chatbot, and I get the answer I'm looking for. So it looks like there I need to ensure that it's only for office usage. And I can also see I can create a purchase order following the guidelines and do this right away in Ariba guided buying. You also see we have reference included. So if I click on that, I will see the quote I reference from the policy, and then really giving the trust back. Can really then see if this is the correct process, the correct policy that should be applied here. All right, before we move back to the presentation and to the content, one asset I also wanted to show you is the SAP AI catalog for business AI features. So if you want to learn more about our embedded AI solutions. I highly recommend you this resource. It includes already roughly 300 of our AI agents and features embedded into our products. So let's say you are responsible for HR, you want to learn more about AI in SuccessFactors. You can easily do this by filtering on, for example, the product category, saying human capital management, and you will see our solutions available. So for example, we looked into a couple of them, like the development goal creation. You can click on that, see more information, get more support information also around the cost, for example. You can calculate that. So this is a really core asset for you as well to inform yourself about AI features embedded into our products. All right. Now, let us go back into some of our content. So where do we stand as of today? So if you look into that slide, that's now an example for the HR process. It looks very similar for our finance process, for our legal, for our marketing, sales process, and so on. So across the company, we have multiple end-to-end business processes, and the landscape looks very similar, that we have for the individual process steps, individual AI solutions existing. And that setup is okay, but also yields to a couple of challenges that you are facing then. So I will not go through all of them, but just to mention a couple is if we have such a landscape, we end up in siloed outcomes. What does it mean is you have one AI use case, which is doing a very concrete task, which is okay, but you don't really have a proper end-to-end coverage. So what we mean with that is the user still manually needs to go through multiple bookmarks, for example, open multiple systems and copy and paste information from left to right and so on. So it's not really a smooth process workflow. It's more like assisting with individual AI solutions. Another topic is the return on investment is unclear. Why? Because we have a specific step of the process instead of having an entire coverage of the process. And our KPIs, our process KPIs are defined on an end-to-end cycle. So really ensuring that you can measure the process execution from start to end. This is something which is extremely important. Another point is low user adoption. So again, if I have, for example, 15 AI solutions for our HR process that I all need to bookmark, I will not use them. I maybe use one or two, but I will not use all 15 because again, I need to leave the system, and this is yielding then to allow user adoption. And last but not least, two steps, let me highlight that together is complexity and limited scalability. Again, if I have a very fragmented, decentralized landscape, this will end up that I need to maintain, operate all of the solutions myself, which is then hindering me to reduce the complexity by integrating them, orchestrating them into a single solution. And also the scalability, of course, on that side is difficult to maintain, both upscaling and also downscaling. And how do we envision how it looks like? Like mentioned, that's not just a melody for the future. We already have this, for example, embedded into our customer support process, but the same needs to apply to all end-to-end business processes. So instead of having, again, if we have the quick switch from having isolated AI solutions for the individual process steps, we need to shift from individual AI solutions to compound AI systems or agentic workflows. So meaning that your entire business process should be covered by agents, which themselves are orchestrating, delegating tasks, organizing information, and involving the human where it's required. How this can it look like? For example, let's say you need to trigger the HR process. So understand, for example, what are talents you need for the future. There you have an agent, which is, for example, scanning market research reports and so on, what the competitors are doing, creating you a report about skill sets for the future. Another agent, for example, is writing you the job description. A third agent is providing a summary back to the human, which is then approving it and checking if you need to adjust something. And after it's approved, there's, for example, a fourth agent, which is publishing the job description, marketizing it, and so on and so forth, to inviting candidates, screening their CV, providing recommendations, preparing interview questions, and so on. So that is the true meaning of, from my point of view, an end-to-end business process coverage. So really ensuring that the workflow is executed smoothly from start to end and involving the human expert when it's required for edge cases, for confirming, for taking decisions. And that is really the priority for the future. And here again, that's not something where we say that's just for the future. That's already also partially existing as of today. So how does it look like is with our one Joule strategy at SAP. So instead of bookmarking and knowing about every single AI use case that is existing, we aim to really integrate Joule and have Joule as our central place to interact with the different AI systems. Let me just quickly refresh that and open it up. There we go. So we have Joule, which is embedded into all our products, be it in the Launchpad, be it in SuccessFactors, Concur, Ariba, wherever you have SAP, you also will have Joule. And you can ask Joule in every context, every kind of question. So let's just ask very simple and say, what is, what is my office location? So I know that's a very simple ask, but let's just start very simple. So I can do information retrieval. I can ask information about myself. In this case, Joule is basically leveraging information from SuccessFactors and is providing me here that I'm based in Walldorf, in our headquarters, and providing me that information. On the other side, I can also perform transactions. I, for example, can say, again, in the HR context, create, let's say, how to create a performance goal. So this is what we did earlier directly in SuccessFactors, but I also can utilize Joule to perform this transaction. That's a very simple one. So in this case, now I get this information. I can directly create a performance goal and don't need to navigate within SuccessFactors. But now also we can switch context. Let's say we created our performance goal, and now I have a specific ask for my daily job as a developer, for example. In this case, I can, for example, ask Joule to, how can I create a calculation view in SAP HANA Cloud? So Joule is really your entry point for all kind of questions you might have. Independent system. So you see here now in completely context, and I'm getting the outcome that I might be looking for, a step-by-step guide on how I can create a calculation view. And that is, again, the true meaning of not breaking or like breaking up silos and not forcing the user to switch context from one system to another system, but really having a central entry point where you can call other AI use cases, other agents, perform transactions, get information you're looking for, and have this embedded everywhere. So independent where you are, like I said, if you are in a Launchpad, if you are in SuccessFactors, Concur, Ariba, you can ask Joule any kind of questions and don't need to switch context or different systems for that. So that is Joule, and that's where we also stand here. I have this also on a couple of slides. If you want to look into that, you can quickly pause, but I would have it already covered with Joule really allowing you to perform different transactions from information retrieval, navigation, and so on, and also having Joule embedded into our entire cloud portfolio. So across all the products we offer, and also then infusing agents into Joule, so you can directly perform workflow transactions out of it. We're already close to the end of the session. Before we close it up, I have two recommendations for you. One, I already mentioned, there is an amazing upcoming session from Michelle next week to learn more about how to apply agentic AI in the context of customer support. So if you want to see agentic AI in production, in live, then I highly recommend you this session. And to close it off, I have 3 key takeaways I also want to share together with you. The first one is you need to start with the process. You need to start with understanding your business, your process, your user needs. Do it in a structured way with, for example, Signavio, understanding your process, identifying bottlenecks, identifying white spots, and then taking a structured approach. But here, the most important is just get started. Don't waste time, experiment, learn, fail, repeat the cycle, and you will see the first business results. Secondly, think already about integration and consolidation. So if you get started with AI, you will very soon end up with a landscape where you have tons of different AI solutions deployed in your architecture around the business processes and so on. And you need to very early on think upon integration and orchestration. And here on the data layer, recommend you the session on Business Data Cloud of how you can integrate and consolidate your different data sources. But the same also applies for different AI solutions. So really here, the recommendation is keep the core clean, use the embedded AI solutions in our product. And if you want to build extensions, utilize the Business Technology Platform with AI Core and Generative AI Hub to do so. And then last but not least, also very important learning from our side was to measure adoption, the process impact, and the value. In the end, we are doing business AI, so really doing AI solutions that matter for your business, that matter for our business. So which is why it's extremely important that we also mention or measure the impact on the process, on the value side, on the manual work that needs to be done. So really install a clear framework of how you want to measure adoption, of how you want to quantify the value, because this is then also important for sustainable growth and then clear communication also back to your C-level on the impact on what is the outcome for the AI investment that you're doing. All right, that's it from my side. Thanks a lot already. And now back to you, Tania, to see if there are a couple of questions.
Great. Thank you so much, Majeed. Actually, with your final slide, you already answered a question that many user group members always ask us, exactly how to start. So thank you very much. I think that's a very valuable slide you just shared. Yes, we do have questions. We have, let me start with the first one. Can I add my own content or documents to Joule?
Yes, you can, and you should as well. So Joule is offering document grounding, so you can come up with your own documents, your own policies, for example, easily upload that to Joule via our document grounding service, and then your context will be available to Joule. So this is also the strategy from our side that we say Joule is providing you answers to common SAP products, processes, deep insights into that, and also transactions, but you need to come as well with your own. You use a document grounding service to really enrich Joule then with your custom content.
Great, thank you so much. The next question is, when are you leveraging SAP solutions? When do you go with custom build? And when with external solutions? Great question.
Yeah, that's a good question. Let me see if I can answer that in a couple of sentences. I could speak hours about it. First and foremost, we use our own product. So that's our clear strategy and mindset that we want, whenever possible, use our own products and use it directly embedded into them, like in SuccessFactors, Fieldglass, and so on. So whenever we have something available, we use it out of our own portfolio. And then if we see the need that there is a really unique opportunity or unique product to SAP internally because of our policies, for example, for procurement I shared, then we build extensions, we build custom AI solutions on top of BTP and AI Core to really then have ensure that we can integrate and orchestrate those solutions. And then last but not least, of course, we also utilize solutions from our partners. We have, for example, GitHub Copilot deployed, available for all our developers at SAP. This is something where we utilize services from our partners, where we say, hey, this is something where they really have clear strength in it. And this is where we also then utilize solutions from our partners, wherever they can enrich and extend our portfolio.
Good, thank you so much. Actually, I have another question. So how is actually SAP internally prioritizing new AI ideas? How are we doing that?
Yeah. Also very good, interesting question. So what we do first is and foremost is use cases that can help us to reduce compliance risk, improve data protection, for example. Those use cases should always be prioritized. Why? Because they don't have a clear business value you can quantify. It's more like providing more on top of your compliance and security and data protection. So make sure when you have ideas on compliance and enablers, you prioritize them. And for the rest of our backlog, we take a very strict value-based approach. So meaning the use case which is promising the highest value compared to the lowest implementation costs. So basically calculating a simple return on investment. We then prioritize our backlog to make sure that from an IT side, we are investing our resources into the right topics, which are providing SAP in total the biggest value. And that's also my recommendation. Make sure that you install a solid value management approach, quantify the value of AI, and then prioritize based on that to really then deliver a real business impact.
Thank you so much. We don't have any questions currently in the chat. I would like to offer once again to all attendees and anyone listening afterwards. If you have any questions, post them in the comments area underneath this video, and we will answer your questions. And with this, then let me thank you once again, Majeed, for your excellent presentation. It was really interesting and provided a lot of insights, how we do it, and ideas how maybe our customers could use our solutions. And of course, a big thanks to all attendees for joining. I hope you got a lot of value from this session, and I hope to see you again next week. Bye-bye.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.